All right. 48 laws of power in prison. Law 5. So much depends on reputation. Guard it with your life. Reputation is the cornerstone of power. Through reputation alone, you can intimidate and win. Once it slips away, however, you are vulnerable and will be attacked on all sides. Make your reputation unassailable. Always be alert to potential attacks and thwart them before they happen. Meanwhile, learn to destroy your enemies by opening holes in their own reputations. Then stand aside and let public opinion hang them.
Yeah, so it just kind of flows to what we were just talking about, because I've written some notes here talking about people who would start rumours about people, saying that they're a snitch or a grass to deflect from the fact that they were doing it. In Winchester prison, there was a guy called Peanut. His name came in the newspaper for being involved in a local paedophile ring in a town near to the prison. So they went in on him, 3 people, and they attacked him, and they were his own people from the same area. So they booked him, got him off the wing. And I remember seeing him because he was in the CM's office first, and he was all bruised. And it was someone else with the same name. So it wasn't even him. But he didn't stay and fight for his reputation, Shaun, and his honour. He went into protection onto the numbers wing, D wing, with all the chomos, sex offenders, rapists, debtors, people in debt who'd gone off the wing. And I mean, he wasn't, I'm not saying that he wasn't doing bad stuff. I mean, he's actually back in now again for quite a bad crime, some kind of robbery on an elderly person, but he wasn't a paedophile. And but he didn't save his reputation and try and stay on the wing. And the point is that once that reputation's gone, it's more often than not impossible to get it back. That's why the book is training you to understand that you have to guard your reputation with your life. We've seen it recently in the free world with the companies that have killed these people in the hospitals with the stuff in the sandwiches, and they're shut down. They've shut down. They're not giving out any more food. And if you kill guests in a restaurant, you're finished. Once you lose that reputation, you can't come back from that, Shaun. So it's an example in the free world. So you have to guard your reputation. It's very important. I've been watching a lot of Big Herc videos. He's had a guy in there called Wes Watson recently.
Shout out to Big Herc, and I really have been. I was watching the Wes when I went to Wildman's house. Wildman was watching the Wes stuff.
Yeah.
Man, we were glued to that stuff. Brilliant. Yeah.
Very powerful stuff.
Yeah.
I messaged them both. I just gave them a big shout out across the pond here from, England. Just mad, crazy respect and admiration for what they're doing. They're doing great things. And the video of Wes Watson and Big Herc, in my opinion, it's one of the most powerful interactions between two men of our backgrounds, similar backgrounds that I've seen on the internet. It's such a powerful message, and just slightly going back to the start of this podcast, when I said that first podcast for me was life-changing, I would even go as far to say, Shaun, more life-changing than any accredited offender behavior program, deficits in cognitive thinking, ETS 6-week course, because it's given me a new lease of life and purpose. And Wes Watson talks about that, the rigorous pursuit of purpose over pleasure. And that's what he does. And it's very easy to misinterpret someone like Wes because of his size. But if you actually read his comments and listen to him, he's communicating wisdom to children, on a big stage across the world. And I reiterate and I say over and over again, for as long as we continue to demonize, the opportunity to understand and learn is missed. And the American penitentiary system and the draconian United Kingdom penal system, we demonize in prison and then we demonize them when they get out. And who suffers from that most of all is society, Shaun, because the wisdom, the priceless wisdom that people like you have got, that I have got, Big Herc have got, Wes Watson have got, the wisdom that we've got for all the people I explained earlier, the next generation academics and A, B, C, and D, like I explained earlier, about children who are potentially going down the wrong path, is just, it's priceless, And so, I've been really impressed with them. And they were talking about, what were they talking about? What have I written here? Yeah, like Wes talks a lot about how there's a guy kicking it on the yard, he's with his people, whatever racial group that is. I mean, I'm constantly and consistently on a daily basis, and I remain so right now until this moment, Shaun, like just completely blown away at this racial segregation thing in America. If I sit, I can't sit with a black man or I will get smashed, on a level 3, level 4 yard. It blows my mind. It really does in the 21st century. Yet when Nelson Mandela says prison is a microcosm of society, that is something that I feel strongly in agreement with. And if you want to learn about a society, and understand the measure of said society, then go into one of the prisons and observe the way said state treats a prisoner, and you'll get a great microcosm into that society. And so it is a microcosm of the racially divided American society, and I find it mind blowing. I find it very sad. But Wes Watson would talk about you got a guy on the yard, he's kicking it with his homies, they're on the bars, they're with each other all the time. And this could go on for years, like 7 years, 6 years. Then one person turns up on the yard and says, I've got paper on him. And so in that instant, because the person he's got paper on, knows that he knows. Yeah. So the reputation is gone immediately. And he's gone because he's going to get booked because it's going to be his own people who book him. So that reputation, he can't get it back. He can't. He just, it's impossible to get it back. So they go. If they're lucky enough to get out of there without getting smashed, they'll do it. I don't know if it happens at 2 a.m. in the American prisons that you hear them opening doors and they sneak off. They put a kite in on themselves. They put a kite in on themselves to get off the unit. But once that reputation is gone, it's very difficult to get back. And there's one thing that Robert Greene, it's not even Robert Greene, it's Friedrich Nietzsche.
Nietzsche, yeah.
I mean, some say greatest philosopher of all time.
My favourite.
It is easier to cope with a bad conscience, Shaun, than with a bad reputation. And when I read that earlier, I was like, it was difficult for me to kind of get my head around at first because in the sense that I don't like a bad conscience. I hate it. I like my conscience to be clean, yeah? I don't want to be thinking about something that I've done. So in my daily life, I try and make skillful decisions that don't harm me. Yeah, it's very, very kind of simple logic. Yeah, skillful and not unskillful. So smoking crack cocaine is unskillful. Immersing myself in the service of others and activism for the greater cause of good, fairness, justice, equality for all, freedom from discrimination, and etc. is skillful. Yeah. So this is what I kind of try and do. But so I hate having that bad conscience. I'm only human, and I make mistakes. I will often end up with a bad conscience with arguing with people because I've got a vicious tongue, I can have a vicious tongue. So I'll destroy you with words because of the difficulty in me dealing with the helplessness of not being able to use violence against you, which I would have done 15 years ago. So I can, and then I'll be left with the bad conscience of be in this way, and it's like a burden on me. And very controversial topic, and nobody shoot me down. I don't support or not support. I just observe this person. But this person, for me, that comment, that quote from Nietzsche, it is easier to cope with a bad conscience than with a bad reputation. This is something, in my opinion, that we have observed with controversial figure Tommy Robinson in his recent what you would call demise from Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, getting banned from all these networks and social media platforms, because as he rose up in power, potentially up into the fringes of the political arena, this kind of global political arena, where he was then generating support as far as Australia, Canada, America, even in Congress, he was gaining support. He could never, ever, ever shake off the bad reputation of being in the BNP. He could just never shake it off. And he white knuckled it for a few years and, kind of got around it. But like I said, as he rose up, he could never shake off. And I'm sure Tommy would have rather had, like what Nietzsche says, a bad conscience than the bad reputation that he's now been that is constantly associated with him, with being in the BNP.
Well put. And I think reputation, even with the YouTube channels. So you just cited Big Herc. Shout out to all those guys. Josh, 23 in 1 Lockdown, Joe, After Prison Show, Big Herc.
Yeah, I love Joe, yeah.
And
Joey.
My mission is the same as their mission, which is to help other guys who've been to prison share their stories, get the feedback coming in and the comments and the support, seeing how that can help their lives. You've given your testimony today, which I thank you for, brother, because that helps my reputation with what I'm doing. Because there's always people out there trying to sink your reputation. And I had a situation with my first podcast guest, Jamie Morgan Kane. His podcast now is at like 1 million views, and his clip, "What if a shot caller puts a green light on you in Folsom Prison," is coming
over 4 million.
Coming up for 5 million.
Yeah.
Every day I wake up, it's the most watched thing still.
Incredible.
So, I was accused of being in a criminal conspiracy with Jamie Morgan Kane to defraud the public out of £500, which is like $700 or $800. And I got hellfire from all over the world. I was
telling Ben about it on the way here. It's blown away.
I was doxxed. I was dogpiled.
Cyber attack.
Cyber attacked. Yeah, all my platforms. It cost me thousands in legal fees and security increased fees and website losses and website restorations and hours and hours calling banks and changing passwords and double access, whatever it's called, security access. And this went on. I was getting the podcast off the ground, and this set me back, man.
Yeah.
Really set me back. All these people just saying I was a scumbag criminal, trying to just defraud the public. Having this guy on my podcast who's a complete phone. He's made up all his stories, all made up. Yeah. He's never been in the military. He's not even from England. Wasn't born in the Isle of Man. Every single thing that he said, they said it was just complete and utter lies. And then, therefore, because I had him on my platform, I am now also my reputation goes down with his.
Yeah.
So I'd never experienced anything like that before in my life. I'm on this mission, like the other big channels, help guys get out there, share their stories. Maybe it can help them give a hand up in their lives. My other mission is drugs education for school kids. All these hackers took down all my resources for the schools, all this drugs education stuff. My website for Brendan Dassey and Stephen Avery, how to help those guys in prison. Yeah. That's dust, that's gone. I couldn't even afford to get all that stuff back up. So it was like this huge challenge in my life. Here's my reputation now on the line because all these people all over the world are saying I'm just this crook trying to capitalize on a fake story. Like as if that is why I'm on YouTube, that is my purpose in life. But because I hadn't experienced it before, I let it in. I let it affect me emotionally. And my family were, seeing these death threats coming in, people are going to show up at my talks and kill me, and my mum's getting upset and all this kind of thing. It's ricocheting through the family. And so I promised everybody that I would see that there was an investigation into Jamie Morgan Cain's story.
Yeah.
And by the time this podcast goes up, I'm going to have a response. Well, the response will already be up about the investigation. So Jamie Morgan Cain submitted his book to one of the biggest publishers in the world, like a $500 million company. If you are publishing a book, they look at every single thing that you write, and you got to have paperwork to back it up, and they authenticate it. And
excuse me,
he submitted 600 pages of documents. Jamie Morgan Cain. He didn't just creep off into the shadows and say, "Yeah, I'm a phony." He submitted 600 pages of documents, and in 4 days' time, his book is going to be published by that company because they have authenticated all these documents and what he said.
Straight up, yeah.
Yeah. So, like, I took all this personally, all this stuff coming in, and it set me back on my road because I was thinking my reputation is on the line. I've done this. If this investigation is done now, I made the publisher aware that I was doxxed and dogpiled and all the controversy around him to make sure you get all his paperwork, and they did. So, where does that now make me stand in the international community? And should I even care about my reputation? I should, according to Nietzsche.
I think two things. The first thing I would say, I mean, just listening to you describe it, I wasn't emotionally involved in this situation, so I was an observer. But as I was telling Ben on the way here, an unprecedented cyber attack on not just that video, but all of your videos and all your channel, or a lot of your technology resources, death threats, gang rape threats. I remember spending like 2 days like reading all the comments, yeah. And you had this wave, not just a wave, a tidal, like waves and waves and waves of this consistent attack on your network, on your YouTube channel, on the work that you've done in the past decade, that this tireless activism that you've been involved with, and as well on your character, your reputation, your integrity, and it was phenomenal. I think two things. I think number one, with regards to you, and I mentioned it on a video on my channel. I think the way that you dealt with it, I think it was a test. Everything happens for a reason. So we have faith that our lives are unfolding, and Shaun Attwood's life is unfolding the way it's meant to be unfolding, in the exact correct order, with the exact specific people that is unfolding and happening. Yeah. So we have some faith that it's meant to be, but in an intense situation like that, we can't always see the wisdom or the learning. So I feel very strongly that it was meant to happen. I think you showed incredible resolve, resilience, self-discipline. At no point did you react. And you've been very open there about, and humble. You've shown humility about how it affected you personally. And you've allowed yourself to be vulnerable. And you've said, this has affected my mother, and death threats. I mean, this is serious stuff. These are crimes. Yeah. So to wrap up my first point, I would say that, and I said this on my video, and I'll say it again here on the podcast, you showed yourself to be the example of what you've been trying to achieve in your activism by your response, as opposed to reacting to what happened to you. Yeah. So I think you should be commended for that. I think that was, it certainly inspired me, because I could not have, I just couldn't, I don't know. I can't even think of anybody. Maybe Dr. Nigel, the Buddhist teacher, like, to not respond. I mean, I can respond to a couple of negative comments immediately. I mean, you had hundreds and hundreds of them. So I think you showed incredible character, resolve, dignity, grace, and, you know, that's the trick, isn't it, Shaun? That's the trick. If we can show grace and dignity in the face of unjust persecution, then in my opinion, not something I read in a book or it's my lived experience, I believe that we will shine, and I believe that you have shined. And I know you tried to interject that, but if I may finish, like, the second thing is, at the same time, despite all of what I've said, I think we have to respect the American military in the sense that they take it, and this is something that was a learning curve for me, Shaun, on the subject of the American military and how very serious it is taken. I'm not saying Jamie Morgan Cain did or didn't lie. I'm just emphasizing the point that I think it's important to acknowledge how serious it is taken in the American military when somebody potentially is dishonest about being in the military if they haven't been. Yeah. I think that's important to acknowledge that in America, when soldiers walk in a restaurant, people stand up and salute them. And I think that's incredible. And I think that we should do that here. Yeah. When I was in hospitality and I used to get soldiers come in, I used to treat them like gods because they are just incredible human beings. So I think we should send love to the American military and, you know, just from across the pond here in England.
Well, I appreciate that people criticized and drew my attention and made me make extra sure about certain things and make sure there was an investigation. So I thank those people for instigating the investigation. I've spoke to Don Shipley by email. Don't have a problem with Don Shipley at all. He's got an impeccable record.
Yeah.
And I really, you know, think what he's doing is brilliant with you know, outing these phony people who are capitalizing on stolen valor. So
and he's got the farm and the charity or something.
He does all kinds of work for veterans, and you know, most of my prison friends were veterans. I've raised money for T-Bone, who was a Marine.
Yeah, I've been watching a few of his videos.
Brilliant fellow. So you got Don saying one thing, he's never been wrong. And now you've got the publisher saying another thing, which is opposed to some of what Don said. So people who said things like Jamie Morgan Cain wasn't born in the UK, two governments processed that. To deport him back to here, there's just no way two governments are not gonna, you know. So there was a lot of outlandish claims made outside of what Don Shipley said. So a lot of those outlandish claims have been crushed by the authentication of Jamie's story by the publisher. Now, some people are going to say, because this investigation has produced these results that go against what Don Shipley says, I'm therefore going against Don Shipley, which I'm not. I actually think what would be interesting would be something like a documentary titled like "Who is Jamie Morgan Cain?" where Don Shipley's interviewed.
Yeah, we could do that, man.
Jamie's interviewed.
Yeah.
The publisher is interviewed. And everybody gives their perspective, and it's researched even more, perhaps. You know, maybe the publisher's made some errors in some areas. Maybe Don Shipley's made some errors in some areas. And maybe more information will come to light. So presently, some people are going to be mad now. They're going to blame me because of this entity that I have nothing to do with, who's authenticated the story. And they're going to try and crush my reputation again. And they're going to probably try and turn my YouTube channel into a battlefield over Jamie Morgan Cain this, Jamie Morgan Cain that. So I'm just hoping that people will see I've got integrity. I've tried to do as much as I can from my side of the pond. I didn't know what the results of this investigation were going to be by a legal department that's got millions and millions of dollars.
Yeah.
I don't have millions and millions of dollars to investigate Jamie's claims. I had no idea that they were going to, you know, authenticate all these documents. And that's what's happened. But now I imagine they're going to try and shoot the messenger, some of the more hardcore people who are against him.
Mm.
So hopefully people will see I've done everything I possibly can. I'm absolutely against stolen valor. I support veterans.
Yeah.
And most of my friends in prison, it's sad, a few of them have died. Two Tonys was a veteran. Frankie was a veteran. Frankie died at the end of last year. I was speaking to him in the hospital when he's on his deathbed. Two Tonys died in 2010. He basically saved my life in prison. He was in the Navy. And I've got, these are some of the people I've been closest to in my life have been veterans. So it's really sad when I get attacked saying I'm putting a phony story out and trying to just make $800 off it, and just, like that's going to make any difference in our lives.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's not nice to experience that persecution, but a lot of it ties into everything we spoke about on the podcast, Shaun. Presence of mind, keep your emotions on top of your emotions, respond as you have been doing through the entire of this situation, and not react. And everything happens for a reason. Just have some faith that things are gonna work out. And one thing I didn't mention, but I think is important, is during those waves and waves and waves of cyber attacks, excuse me, your fan base did rise up, and your fan base did rise up. The grassroots, long term, Shaun Attwood, the fan base rose up, and they, wrote tons of positive comments. So that was nice. That was nice to see as well. And I think those people, and yeah, there was a few, who'd been around for a long time, questioning stuff, but all those comments that I read that were positive, I think saw your integrity, saw that you didn't try and have a conspiracy for £500, and that you just took a man on good faith. You had no reason to dispute anything he said. You explained how you got in touch with him through a charity recommended him to you, and you tried to help him. Because what you've done to him, you've done for me. We set up the GoFundMe for me. That's been quite successful for me. I've made friends as far away as China. I've built great relationships with people. I've met a good friend down there in a lady whose brother killed himself in prison. I'll go and see her, have coffee with her. It's just, it's all positive. What you've done for me. I think the only thing that I would say, from my observations, despite everything that I've said that's been positive, is he deleted his channel.
He never ran that channel.
He deleted the channel, so it just kind of made him look a bit guilty.
He doesn't have the technical skills to do a channel. The internet bypassed him. That was a setup by people who support him out of London.
Yeah,
and their family got upset with all of the incoming waves of
I can
comments.
imagine.
Yeah.
And I just, that's understandable. And I just reiterate what I said before, Shaun, which is to just send tons and abundance of love over to America. And I agree. I respect what Don Shipley, does. The charity work that he does, his military background. I've got the utmost respect for, veterans. And, unfortunately, we're not all the best communicators. Some of us can have a frustrating way or an angry way of communicating, so yeah, we just show love and just send love, unconditional love in abundance, tons of it.
There you go, 48 laws of power. All we need is love.